The twin moons of Shirelia glowed gently in the night sky. Their soft light fell on the silver towers of the royal city, casting long shadows over the stone courtyards. A large crowd gathered around the trial arena, where a human stood at the center, dusty, bruised, and breathing hard. His name was Jaren, and unlike the tall, elegant Cirellians, he looked rough and plain. He wore simple worker's clothes, and his hands were dirty from hard labor. He was just a worker from the lower sectors of the planet, helping build roads and clean waste systems for the royal family. Today, that changed. A few hours earlier, Jaren had stepped in to stop a noble Xerelian from striking a fellow human girl. The noble was cruel and powerful, but Jaren didn't step back. He stood firm and challenged the Xerelian to a trial of honor, an ancient rule that even humans could call upon, though no one had done so in years. To everyone's shock, Jaren had won. The crowd couldn't believe it. A human had defeated a noble, and by the rules that meant he was granted one request, a reward for his bravery. Jaren's victory was brought to the royal palace quickly, as per tradition. The ruling family was required to hear his request. The guards brought Jaren, still bleeding from his fight, into the Hall of Stars, a wide room filled with glowing banners and royal statues. At the far end of the hall stood Princess Vailari, daughter of the High Queen. She was tall and graceful, with silver markings on her skin and golden armor that shone like starlight. Her gaze was cold, sharp, and proud. She belonged to the highest caste, the stellar bloodline, and believed strongly in the system that placed her people above all others. When she saw that the victor was a human, she frowned and spoke with clear disgust. "You're beneath my caste, human. What could you possibly want from this court?" Jaren bowed slightly. He didn't smile, didn't act proud. His voice was calm, steady, and clear. "I request the right of the first night, as the tradition allows." The entire hall fell silent. The right of the first night was an old ceremony, used only when someone of great skill or courage won a trial of honor. It allowed the victor to spend one evening beside a royal, under the stars, at a feast in peace. It was meant to honor warriors. It had never been requested by a human. Not once. Princess Vailari narrowed her eyes. She walked down the marble steps, stopping just inches from Jaren. "Do you know what you're asking for?" she said. Jaren nodded. "Yes, I only ask what is allowed by your own law." "You dare place yourself beside me?" she said, her voice cold. "You're dirt beneath my boots." Jaren looked at her without anger. "You can believe what you like, princess, but I fought with honor. I followed your law. I didn't ask for riches. I didn't ask for power. I only asked to stand as an equal for one night." Vailari turned away, clearly angry. But tradition was powerful in Xerelian culture. If she denied the request, it would bring dishonor to the crown. The council whispered among themselves. Even her mother, the queen, gave a small nod from her throne. "Let the request be honored," the queen said. "He has earned it." Vailari gave a forced nod. "Fine. One night. Then you go back to the dirt." The guards escorted Jaren to the royal chambers, where he was allowed to clean and dress in ceremonial robes. They were simple compared to Xerelian clothing, but respectful. He was treated politely, but coldly, by the staff. Later that evening, he was taken to the Garden of Moons, where the feast would take place. The garden was beautiful. Trees from across the galaxy surrounded a crystal-clear pool. Silver lights floated above the ground. At the center of it all was a table set for two, Jaren and Vailari. She arrived in a formal dress, still wearing her armor on her shoulders. Her expression showed no kindness. "You have your night," she said, sitting across from him. "Use it wisely." Jaren simply nodded. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't ask her questions or stare. He just sat and quietly enjoyed the food, which was unlike anything he'd tasted before. There were soft fruits that glowed faintly, meats cooked in strange spices, and drinks that tasted like cold fire. After some time, Vailari spoke again. "Why didn't you ask for something else?" she asked, still not looking at him. "A ship? Gold? Freedom?" Jaren looked up. "Because none of those things break walls between people. This This night might. She didn't reply. For the first time, she wasn't sure what to say. The feast continued in silence. Jaren never acted like he was better than her. He never acted like a hero. He just sat like a man who believed in something, even if everyone around him thought he was wrong. That night, beneath the moons of Shirelia, something small began to shift in Princess Vailari's heart. It was not love. Not yet. But it was something more dangerous than hatred. It was doubt, and doubt is how change begins. The morning light poured softly through the tall windows of the royal palace. The halls were quiet, but the air was heavy with whispered voices. News of Jaren's victory and his request spread quickly like wildfire. It was the talk of the city, from the highest towers to the lowest streets. No one could believe a human had claimed the right of the first night. Many thought it impossible. Others thought it a joke. But Princess Vailari knew it was very real, and she was not happy about it. She sat in her chambers, staring at the ceremonial robes laid out for the night before. They were made of fine silk, with threads of silver and blue, embroidered with symbols of her house. She touched the fabric with care but felt a storm inside. Her advisor, an elder named Torlin, entered quietly. "Princess, the council wishes to discuss the matter of the human's claim," he said, bowing. "They fear this will bring dishonor." Vailari shook her head. "The law is clear, Torlin. The trial was fair. The right must be honored." Torlin sighed, understanding her pain but worried about the consequences. "You know how the other nobles will react. Some will refuse to serve at the feast. Others may even call for Jaren's punishment." Vailari's eyes flashed with anger. "Then let them call. I will not break the law for fear of whispers." But inside, she felt uncertainty. Could a human really be treated as an equal, even for one night? Could she stand beside someone so different from her own kind? That day, the palace prepared for the feast. Guards polished the silverware. Servants arranged the food. Musicians practiced songs of old. But the greatest preparation was in Vailari's heart. When the evening came, Jaren was led to the Garden of Moons once more. The crowd was smaller than before. Many nobles had refused to come. Some servants whispered among themselves, unsure if the ceremony would even happen. But Vailari stood tall at the entrance. She wore a new gown, deep blue with stars embroidered across the fabric. Her hair was loose, falling softly over her shoulders. She looked less like a proud princess and more like a woman ready to face a new truth. Jaren bowed respectfully. He did not speak until she invited him. The feast began quietly under the twin moons. The food was served again, soft fruits, tender meats, and sweet drinks. The music played softly in the background. Vailari watched Jaren closely. She expected him to be arrogant, to boast, or to insult her caste. But he remained humble. He spoke, only when spoken to, and answered with kindness and respect. "Tell me, Jaren," Vailari said after some time. "How did you learn to fight so well?" He smiled gently. "I learned to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what humans do. It is not about strength, but about heart." Vailari was surprised. No one had ever said something like that to her. The nobles only cared about power and status. But here was a human, teaching her something new. "You are unlike any human I have met," she said softly. Jaren looked down. "I do not represent all humans, Princess, but I do believe in honor and respect." The two spoke quietly for hours, sharing stories of their lives. Vailari told him about the heavy duties of being a princess, the expectations to marry a noble lord, and the pressure to keep her caste pure. Jaren listened with care. "Your burdens sound heavy," he said, "but maybe together we can find a way to ease them." Vailari smiled for the first time that night. It was not a smile of pride, but one of hope. Suddenly, the peaceful night was broken by a loud noise. Guards shouted warnings as several masked figures rushed into the garden. The rebels, aliens who opposed the caste system, had come to stop the feast. They believed a human taking such an honor was a threat to their world. Chaos erupted. One attacker, lunged toward Vailari with a sharp blade. Before anyone could react, Jaren moved quickly. His hand caught the blade mid-air, twisting the attacker's arm and forcing him to drop the weapon. The rebels tried to fight back, but Jaren's training and human instinct saved the princess and several guards. Vailari was shocked. This human, whom she once called beneath her, was protecting her with his life. After the fight, the rebels fled, but the message was clear. Some would never accept a human beside a royal. In the quiet after the attack, Vailari and Jaren found themselves alone in a hidden corridor beneath the palace. Their hearts still raced, but a new feeling grew between them. Trust. Vailari looked at Jaren with different eyes. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "I owe you more than honor now." Jaren shook his head. "No debt. I only do what is right." Vailari hesitated, then spoke about her fears. "I was raised to see humans as beneath us, but you are different. You make me question everything." Jaren smiled gently. "Sometimes, to build a better future, we must break old walls, even those made by tradition." For the first time, Vailari did not feel the weight of her crown. Instead, she felt the possibility of change, of a world where humans and Xerelians could stand side by side. They left the hidden corridor and returned to the feast, ready to face whatever came next. The palace was alive with tension. Whispers echoed through the marble halls like a cold wind. The rebels' attack had shaken everyone. Guards were doubled, and no one trusted the shadows. Yet, the feast was not over. Princess Vailari and Jaren had returned to the Garden of Moons, but now their night held more weight than ever before. Vailari's mind raced. She felt a strange mix of fear and admiration for Jaren. Not many humans had walked in the royal palace, let alone stood beside her as an equal. Yet here he was, brave, calm, and true. The nobles who remained at the feast avoided their gaze. Some whispered cruel things. Others openly showed their dislike. Vailari's eyes burned with quiet anger. She stood beside Jaren like a shield, ready to face them all. Suddenly, a messenger arrived, breathless and urgent. "Princess Vailari, the Council of Elders has convened an emergency session," the messenger said. "They demand the trial results be overturned. They say the humans' claim is a threat to our traditions and must be erased." Vailari clenched her fists. "They cannot erase what was won fairly," she replied. "I will stand for the law." Jaren looked at her with steady eyes. "I will stand with you." Together they returned to the grand hall where the council waited. The elders were stern, their faces lined with age and power. The High Elder, an imposing figure named Saral, rose to speak. "Princess, this human's claim dishonors us. The caste laws have kept peace for centuries. To allow a human the right of the first night threatens our way of life." Vailari raised her voice. "The law is clear. Jaren earned his right by trial and honor. To deny him is to deny justice." Saral's eyes flashed. "Justice is tradition. You put the crown and people at risk by ignoring this." Jaren stepped forward. "Justice is fairness, not fear of change." The room fell silent. The elders whispered angrily, but Vailari and Jaren stood firm. Suddenly, a young noblewoman named Lyra spoke from the crowd. "Princess Vailari is right. Our world cannot grow if we refuse to see beyond old walls. I support Jaren's right." Her words shocked many, but others began to nod quietly. Vailari smiled slightly. She had allies, both old and new. After the tense meeting, Vailari and Jaren walked through the palace gardens. The night air was cool, filled with the scent of blooming stars. Vailari looked at Jaren, her expression softer than before. "You have stirred more than I expected," she said. "Not just the council, but my own heart." Jaren smiled gently. "And you have shown me a world full of rules and walls, but also hope." They walked quietly, sharing stories of their childhoods. Vailari told how she was raised to believe only those born into the stellar bloodline were worthy. Jaren spoke of Earth, a planet where humans struggled but always helped each other. Your people seem different, Vaylari said. Strong and proud, but trapped by their own laws. Jaren nodded. Every world has rules, but not all rules are right. Sometimes it takes courage to change them. As they talked, they did not notice the small group of palace guards approaching. Their faces were hard and their eyes cold. One guard stepped forward. Princess, the council orders that Jaren be removed from the palace grounds immediately. Vaylari's heart raced. You will not touch him, she said firmly. He has done nothing wrong. The guard sneered. The law is clear. The council will not tolerate this human's presence. Jaren stood tall. If you want to take me, you must face me first. The guards hesitated, unsure if they dared fight a man who had already proven his strength. Suddenly, the ground shook with a loud "Phur." A massive shadow moved over the palace walls. Vaylari and Jaren looked up in shock. A fleet of rebel ships had appeared in the sky, blocking the palace from the outside world. Inside the palace, panic spread quickly. The rebels were not finished. They wanted to overthrow the caste system by force. Vaylari grabbed Jaren's hand. We must stop this, she said. Together. Jaren nodded. I will fight by your side. The two hurried to the command center where the palace defenders prepared for battle. Vaylari took charge, using her knowledge of the palace and her influence over the guards. Jaren fought with skill and courage, inspiring those around him. The battle was fierce but short. The rebels were driven back and the palace secured. Afterward, Vaylari and Jaren stood together, looking out at the peaceful stars. This fight is only the beginning, Vaylari said softly. Jaren smiled. Then we will face it side by side. In that moment, Vaylari realized she no longer saw Jaren as beneath her caste. She saw a partner, a warrior, and maybe something more. The palace was quieter now, but tension hung thick in the air. The rebellion had been stopped for the moment, yet the true battle was far from over. The Council of Elders was angry and desperate. They wanted to erase Jaren's victory and punish anyone who supported him. Princess Vaylari knew she stood at a crossroads. Her people expected her to follow the ancient ways, but her heart had changed. The next day, the council gathered again. This time, their demand was clear. Jaren's right of the first night must be taken away. If not, they threatened to remove Vaylari herself from the throne. Vaylari stood before the council, her gaze steady and her voice strong. I will not allow the law to be broken. Jaren earned this right fairly. I will honor it publicly, as tradition demands. The room erupted with shocked gasps. No princess had ever dared to speak so boldly. You risk the crown, Vaylari, one elder warned. You put all of Cyrelia at war. Vaylari raised her hand for silence. The crown is nothing without justice. If the laws serve only some, they are broken laws. She turned to Jaren, who stood beside her. Tonight we will complete the rite of the first night in full view of the court, not as a show of power or status, but as a symbol of honor and unity. Some nobles grumbled and refused to attend the ceremony, but many, others were curious, and the common people waited with hope. That evening the great hall was filled with light and soft music. The nobles dressed in their finest, their eyes full of doubt and suspicion. Vaylari entered first, glowing under the chandeliers. She wore a gown of deep crimson, the color of fire and change. Behind her walked Jaren, calm and proud. He wore the ceremonial robes with dignity, no longer a mere worker but a warrior who had won respect. The crowd was silent as Vaylari took Jaren's hand. Together they walked to the center of the hall, standing beneath the ancient banners of the Cyrelian houses. Vaylari's voice rang clear. This night honors not birth, but courage. It honors the right earned through trial and respect. Jaren stands here as my equal for this night, and as a symbol of a new path for us all. The nobles whispered fiercely. Some looked away in anger. Others watched in silence, unsure what to feel. Jaren looked at Vaylari and smiled gently. I accept this honor with respect and hope for a future where no one is beneath another. The music changed to a soft melody. The feast began. People ate and drank, some still uncertain, but many more feeling the stirring of change. Days passed, and the story of the ceremony spread across Shirelia. The walls of Caste began to show cracks. Vailari and Jaren met often in the palace gardens. They talked about their hopes and fears about their people and the future. One afternoon, as the sun painted the sky gold, Vailari confided in Jaren. "I feel trapped between two worlds. My family demands I marry a noble lord to keep the bloodline pure, but my heart, it no longer knows where it belongs." Jaren took her hand gently. "Sometimes the hardest chains to break are the ones we carry inside." Vailari smiled softly. "You make me believe in something new, that honor and love are not bound by birth." Their friendship deepened. The cold walls of caste began to warm with understanding and respect. But change never comes without struggle. The council was not done. Some elders plotted to strike against Jaren and Vailari. They feared losing power and control. One night, a group of masked men tried to kidnap Jaren from his chambers. Vailari was warned just in time. She rushed to his room, finding him ready to fight. "We must leave," she said urgently. "They want to silence you." Jaren nodded. "Together we are stronger." They escaped through secret tunnels beneath the palace. The city was asleep, but danger lurked in every shadow. They found refuge with allies, commoners and nobles who believed in a fairer world. The next day, Vailari stood before the council one last time. This time she was no longer just a princess. She was a leader ready to change history. "I choose to stand with Jaren and with the people who believe in justice. The caste system has divided us for too long. I declare that honor and respect belong to all, no matter their birth." The room was silent. Some elders were furious, but many voices rose in support. The council could no longer ignore the change sweeping through the land. That night, Vailari and Jaren returned to the Garden of Moons. The stars shone brighter than ever. Vailari looked at Jaren with new eyes. "If I could choose again who walks with me through the stars, it would still be you." Jaren smiled warmly. "And I will walk beside you no matter what comes." Under the moons, two souls stood together, not as princess and human, but as equals. Together they would build a future where walls of caste fell and all could stand proud. The palace was quieter now, but the world outside was changing fast. The walls of caste were crumbling, and with them, the old ways that had ruled Shirelia for centuries. Princess Vailari and Jaren stood at the center of this change, but the fight was far from over. The council elders still opposed them. They spread rumors trying to turn the people against the idea of a human standing with the royal family. But Vailari and Jaren had something stronger than words. They had courage and truth. One morning, as the pale light of dawn touched the palace towers, Vailari stood on her balcony, looking out at the city. The streets below were filled with people, aliens and humans, nobles and workers, all whispering about the future. Jaren joined her quietly. "The people are ready for change," he said softly. "But the old guards will not give up easily." Vailari nodded. "We must be ready, not just for words but for action." They had built a small group of allies, noble rebels, common workers, and even some soldiers who believed in a better world. Together they planned to hold a great assembly, where the future of Shirelia would be decided. The day of the assembly arrived. The great hall was packed with thousands, curious citizens, worried nobles, and hopeful humans. The air buzzed with anticipation. Vailari stood at the front, her voice strong and clear. "For centuries our world has been divided by birth and caste, but today I say it is time to build bridges, not walls. I stand here with Jaren, not just as a princess, but as a friend and equal." Jaren stepped forward, his calm voice carrying through the hall. "I am not here to take anything from anyone. I am here to show that honor and courage belong to all beings. Together, we can create a world where every soul has value." The crowd listened, some nodding, others whispering. Suddenly, a group of angry nobles rose to challenge them. "This is madness," one shouted. "You betray your own people, princess." Vailari met his gaze without fear. "I serve all the people of Sirelia, and I will fight for justice." The debate grew heated, but Vailari and Jaren stood firm. Slowly, more voices joined their side. Commoners cheered. Some nobles lowered their heads, considering a new path. The assembly ended with a historic vote, a vote to end the caste system and start a new era of equality. When the result was announced, the hall erupted in cheers. The future was changing. Later that night, Vailari and Jaren walked together through the palace gardens. The twin moons shone softly above, casting silver light on their faces. Vailari looked at Jaren, her eyes filled with warmth. "You changed everything, Jaren. Not just the law, but me." Jaren smiled. It was never just about law. It was about two hearts believing in something better. They stopped beside the pool, watching the stars reflect on the water. "What happens now?" Vailari asked quietly. "Now," Jaren said, "we build that better world. Together." Months passed. The changes spread through Sirelia. Schools opened for all. Laws were rewritten. Humans and Shirelians worked side by side. The palace became a place of hope, not fear. Vailari and Jaren grew closer. Their bond was no longer just honor. It was trust and friendship and maybe more. One evening, as they watched the stars, Vailari took Jaren's hand. "If I had never met you," she said softly, "I would have missed seeing the true strength in you, and in myself." Jaren squeezed her hand gently. "And I would have missed knowing the courage to stand beside you." Under the wide sky, two souls from different worlds had found a common path. The rite of the first night had been only the beginning, a single night that changed everything.